Good afternoon, Guy. Thank you for being on the show. It is such a pleasure to have you on The Root of Our Health. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for the opportunity, Elizabeth. This is going to be a delightful conversation.
Yes, I agree with that, especially what we talked about in just like 2 minutes ago. So I'm excited to dig right in. But first, we would like to know a little bit about your background and what it is you do.
Excellent question. What is it that I do? So I wear a number of hats. So I started off kind of in holistic health 30 some years ago, and have really followed that path, but have kind of changed the main focus along the way in terms of my private practice. But very early on, I also kind of had a business side, business interest, kind of the entrepreneurial spirit. And so I have kind of at first kind of worked as a consultant, kind of creating integrative medicine practices. And then I started my own integrative medicine practice and grew kind of Bhakti Wellness Center into one of the largest integrative medicine clinics in the country. And now have three brain health clinics and another clinic. So kind of a serial entrepreneur on that side, but then personally have maintained a private practice, moving kind of from orthopedics, so dealing with treatment resistant chronic pain, body, uh, and then eventually discovered or was brought to bioelectric medicine was brought to my attention kind of within my own clinic. Um, Although I had been vaguely familiar, I hadn't worked with it as a practitioner. I hadn't really seen it, but got very interested. So the last 12 years been in bioelectric medicine, and in the last maybe 6 years, specific bioelectric medicine for the brain, and then that kind of led me to build out three different brain clinics where we specialize in treating conditions related to the brain with bioelectric medicine. And so I'm, it shocks me that I'm 30 some years into my career, um, but it's been enjoyable and wouldn't want to be doing anything else.
Nice, nice. Yeah, I was just speaking with somebody who, same like you, 30 years, and said it was a career, not really a job, because you love what you do. But so now I'm kind of interested in how or why did you get into, first off, integrative medicine or, into that approach versus healthcare and all of that. So what was the reasoning for that side versus the other?
Hmm. Yeah. So somewhere along in my childhood, I stumbled upon a book on meditation, and and how growing up in a small town in Canada did such a thing happen. It was not a normative experience, but however it happened, I stumbled across a book on meditation, started to meditate. That kind of got me a little bit into kind of the Eastern philosophy, into Eastern medicine, and so that really made up kind of like from my mid-teens to my late teens. And then I presume to go on to university and kind of in a pre-med program. And somewhere between my third and fourth year, decided, it wasn't so much decided, it was actually my mom who said, you're not really happy doing what you're doing at university. Um, why don't you do something in holistic health and alternative medicine? And I thought, great. A year off on my mom. Fantastic. What could be better? And I came down to the States because I was from Canada. So I came down to the States to do a program down here because there wasn't anything like that where I was from. And it was everything that my medical school education wasn't. It was holistic. It was whole person. It was really about people and not parts and biochemistry and pathophysiology. And it was about people. And so that really was like that combination of things is what set me in this direction. And then what's kept me is the combination. I mean, like, human beings are endlessly fascinating. And whether we're talking kind of, again, kind of on the biological side, like just what makes bodies tick, that's
Yeah.
fascinating. But also subjectively, mind, psychology, what makes people tick on that level. I find all of that just endlessly fascinating. And then to combine that with a you know an ability to show up in that way that involves caring, so healthcare, to be able to help people on their healing journey, that I get to work in an area that fascinates me, but then I have that, the real, I would say, payoff is when you are able to help a patient overcome some hurdle in their flourishing, whether that's pain or kind of physical pain in the body or psychological pain in the mind, or it's just a degenerative condition, whatever it is. You help somebody really improve the quality of their life. To me, like, that's the most rewarding thing to show up every day at work for.
Yep.
And so it's that combination of the two, right? That I kind of get to be the the scientist, the technician, and just dabble in this absolutely amazing field, and and then apply that in a way that matters to people's lives.
Nice. Thanks, Mom. Right?
Exactly. Exactly. I say
Yes.
that pretty much every day, and not nearly often enough to her. So thank you, Mom.
There you go. There you go. Nice. And then meditation. Yeah. So that's I'll get to it in a little bit later as well. But meditation, I think, is so powerful. I think we say it a lot in terms of it's well known out there, but it's still underused. I don't think people use it enough. I think people, hear it and still think it's a woo woo concept. Like, oh, meditation, that's for monks, but it's scientifically shown, that it has so many benefits to it. So that's great that that brought you here.
Absolutely, and I've maintained a 35-year, probably
Yeah.
more now, practice, and so I am a fan of meditation for all that it offers, all that it brings to a person, and more than that, not just a person, but a community, and the larger community of humanity. I do think it is essential, um, and it is unfortunate, as you say, that it isn't just a cultural requirement,
Hmm.
and our culture is fairly much devoid of it, but even the
Yeah.
cultures that have this as their roots, it's not as kind of prevalent and kind of integral to the culture today as we have some ideas that maybe it was in the past, although I suspect even then it wasn't.
Yeah.
And so we have kind of these romantic ideas in for the cultures that have the kind of the origin of meditation. but but I think, that for anybody who's tried to meditate, you realize it's hard,
Hmm.
it's hard in a number of different ways. And I really think, like, that's it, like that's why people don't. You
Yeah.
just think, like, in this country, like, just trying to get people to eat well, like, by comparison to meditation, just eating well isn't that hard,
Yeah.
right? It's just, what do you put in your cart at the grocery store? Like, that's
Yep.
it. And we can't get people to do that at scale. And so to sit and meditate at scale, I mean, that's, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm with you. We should be doing it. I wish we
Yeah.
were, but we got a ways to go. But I will say, one of the things that I have found in doing, in the brain health, is what I do in, say, neurofeedback, as an example. Like, neurofeedback is probably the closest technological approach to meditation, right? Because we actually get to change how energy and information is moving through the brain when we're doing neurofeedback versus if we're doing neurostimulation. And neurofeedback is a learning model, and so is meditation a learning model. You're growing neural infrastructure and synaptic infrastructure when you meditate, and you're doing the same when you're doing neurofeedback, but that isn't necessarily true when you're doing neurostimulation. So they're very similar, or they could have very similar outcomes, but there's still something that comes from a meditation practice that you will never get from a neurofeedback path.
Hmm.
So there is still value to the meditative rest. But what I will say is, in a certain way, like the typical benefits that we associate with meditation, right? Kind of being calmer, having a little more equanimity, having a little bit of a gap between stimulus and response. So
Right.
these are the things that we kind of think about when we think about the benefits of meditation. Those benefits can come from something like neurofeedback and come a lot faster and a
Yeah.
lot more reliably. So in that sense, it's a much better tool, right? Rather than 10 years, 1 year, rather than most people not making it and quitting meditation side, in neurofeedback, it's the opposite. Pretty much everybody is successful. And so, there's a lot of value to be seen in using technology to kind of grow and reinforce and instantiate the neural pathways that are about more optimal um, functioning and living and being.
Yeah.
Uh, but again, it's not a fair comparison because one is a whole being activity and the other is a brain activity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I was not intending to stay on this topic for as long as I'm doing, but it kind of you brought to a remembering of I actually tried to get into virtual reality with meditation and working with a neuroscientist to doing neurofeedback. I actually have. Hold on. So I went and I don't know if you heard of Muse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love Muse.
So I did this and I was in this like, I don't want to say geeked out world, but I was kind of like, oh my gosh, I can track this. I can, let's see how our brain waves, act in this way. And, but it just never, for me personally, I'm more just the emotional side and not the scientific or the neurofeedback, which I thought it is definitely interesting to get that information and to understand it. But it just was not something that I could sustain for a long time from in order to get, to be in that, to be in that. I just do the meditation just because I know the other aspects of it, like you said. But
Mm-hmm.
that's what it kind of sparked my, what I eventually or wanted to get into for a while. Actually, it's been like 4 years ago. But yeah, it's just interesting. It's definitely interesting to see how our brainwaves do react in terms of when we are very heightened versus when we are calm,
Mm-hmm.
and seeing the different brain, the activity that goes on between that.
Mm-hmm. So I'm
Yeah.
curious, like, did you find like working with the Muse, and I don't mean that as a brand, I just mean using
In
a neurofeedback device
right,
to
exactly.
give you feedback on what your brain is up to in the moment, right? So just, but
Yes.
did you find that, like, was it frustrating or or
Yes.
boring
It was
or
frustrating because so typically, on a personal level, I do both music and guided. So this, you had to, it was like birds chirping to tell you
yeah?
that you were you
Mm-hmm.
were like like your brain is calmer. I never heard the birds chirp, so I'm
Yeah.
sitting here like
Yeah.
because I'm wanting to hear that. Then my brain is a little bit more active, and I wasn't able to
Yeah.
um to focus, to just be.
Yep.
So I'm sure, after so many times and it's a practice in general. This is then that's what you were talking about when you get into meditation. It is hard because we all have to. It's not clearing the mind. It's just an ability to have those thoughts come at you fewer and fewer. Meaning, you're able to separate it and kind of like, okay, I get you're there, but I'm centered, So
Yeah. So that's actually well said. So,
yeah.
and you know, I'm happy to talk about meditation all day.
Oh yeah, but we
It's my
won't.
first love. But we will eventually talk about CerebralFit and brain health
Yeah,
and bioelectric
exactly.
medicine.
Yes.
We'll
Yeah.
get there. Just going to slow warm up. So I'll just say something, and then I just want to own like my own, heavily biased opinion of what meditation is and what it isn't, and my background is Zen meditation, and Zen is a pretty austere, minimalist, kind of severe approach.
Yeah.
And there are kind of warmer and fuzzier approaches to meditation than Zen. So I still kind of have a Zen hangover. Um, but in its simplest form, we could say meditation is the disciplining of attention, right? The faculty of attention. We want to learn how to take that and put it where we want it and not have it go where we don't want it. And so just think about like your eyes, right? Just being able to put your eyes where you want them so you can focus on and see the thing you want and not be distracted by all of the other thousand things in your visual field that your eyes could bounce to. But right? And it's just that, right? It's just
Yeah.
we learn that, we don't have it when we're born. We have to develop it, but we develop it pretty quick, and then we use it every day, and so we don't even think about it. We don't think about the amazing things that eyes and brains do to take stereo vision, two different feeds of data, and marry them together to create one focus. This is really remarkable. It's no different with attention, only attention isn't attached to a physical organ,
Right.
right? So it's this capacity that we have, but it's learning how to take our attention and do the same thing with that we do with our vision. And that's like a true meditation practice is nothing other than pick an object, usually the breath, but it could be anything, put your attention on it, and if your attention wanders, just bring your attention back. Like that's it. That's meditation.
Yeah.
Period. And
Period.
we do that because then what comes after meditation, the next skill, needs to use that, right? So let's say you couldn't focus your eyes, but what you wanted to do was read. Well, you couldn't read if you can't make your eyes stay focused on the letters to be able to see words and sentences and paragraphs, and right, you couldn't do it.
Right.
And so it's the same thing with attention. A person can't hold their attention in the place they want it to be, then you can't go on to the next level. And that's all meditation is. It's a stepping stone to the next level. But most people can't get past the first level, which is just do the practice to keep your attention in one place for
Yeah.
a period of time, like for 1 second. Like
Isn't that
literally,
amazing?
like,
Yeah.
like like to hold your attention in one place unwavering for 1 second, like that's Olympic level meditation. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's
So
scary.
yeah. And so I hear like with the Muse, like they do a number of things that you can do music and guided and whatnot.
Yeah.
But truly, when you get into meditation, it's trying to set up guardrails and keep brainwave activity within those defined rails for the function you're doing. And so let's say if you're doing a mindfulness meditation, it's really tracking brainwaves associated with attention. And so it's giving you guardrails to stay there. But if you kind of have monkey mind, the mind's all over the place, you won't hear the birds. And then it gets frustrating.
Yep. I had the monkey mind. So
Yeah.
all good. All
Yeah.
good. I haven't used it in a couple years, so maybe I'm better. So maybe I should try and see.
Or go back. I think just keep dipping in. Just every few
Yeah.
years, keep dipping in,
Yeah.
and eventually, yep.
Awesome. All right. So we spent a little bit more, like I said, on meditation, but let's switch gears a little bit. I do have a little bit of a personal story. So my mom had dementia before she passed. She passed about end of April, but she had dementia for the last 2 years or so. It seemed we were kind of my brother and I talking to her, we noticed some things were a little off. And it's just so interesting that she can remember 50 years ago, but then cannot remember 50 seconds ago. Question to you is, what do you think that deterioration, or what do you think is going on in our, I don't know if it's just the country or it's the world, that is the reason that we are getting more dementia and Alzheimer's and all of these neurodegenerative decline? What do you think is going on?
So first off, I'm sorry to hear about the passing of your mom,
Thank you.
and that it sounds like there was some dementia related, or at least mild cognitive decline at the end,
Yeah.
which can make that passage a little harder, mostly for family. So yeah, you know, so statistically, I mean, it is rising around the world. It's not just a domestic issue, and it's not just a first world issue. Um, so there's a number of causes that drive the neurodegenerative. We'll say dementia as a general catch-all, but we have a number of degenerative conditions that get a specific name when that condition takes root in a particular part of the brain and a particular set of functions is lost, then we give that a different name, even though it's quite likely the cause of that is the same as all the other ones. So that's not 100% true, but it's more true than it's not, right? So dementia and Parkinson's, not that unrelated, really. It's
Yeah.
where in the brain is the degeneration kind of taking place and which function is being lost. And so we just talk about neurodegeneration kind of generically. So one, it's about a 15 to 20 year period in which that process is happening. Roughly, we say 15 or 20 years before there's a noticeable symptom. So we do tend to just kind of blur the edges with the age thing. When signs are starting to show up, we, the individual, but also the individuals around that person, will tend to be, well, you're in your 60s. What do you expect? Or this what happens? And so there's that way in which we can take those early signs and we just normalize them. Right? And so that can allow a person actually to get a little further along before there's a concern. Like a red flag should have gone up earlier. Earlier intervention is better. But often we have to get into some pretty significant cognitive decline before people go, oh, I don't think this is age related. And then they enter the medical system and that. So, okay, so we've got our timeline. So there's a lot of things can happen in 20 years. And that's why the answer to your question isn't simple. There's a lot of things that can happen.
Yeah.
I think Dr. Bredesen has done a great job in rounding up, kind of what he calls kind of like the 36 holes in the roof, and and you can't just fix 5 of the holes or 10 of the holes. You have to fix all 36 holes in the roof if you want it to stop getting water in your house, right? And so he's done a good job of kind of rounding up the panoply of things that have gone sideways in any one person who develops this condition that we would call dementia. So, like where to start on the circle of concerns, right? And so I'm not giving this in any kind of priority, but we can talk about diet. So we see the more a Western diet moves into a society and a culture that previously didn't have that diet, it's not that long before that community, that society's numbers of chronic degenerative diseases starts to grow. And so because we've been able to map this relatively recently, seeing a Western diet go into these otherwise untouched, kind of traditional cultures, we have good data to show that this is a significant factor, right? So they kind of call dementia, type 3 diabetes.
Mm-hmm.
So when our diet, yep. So diet is a big one. And then there's the diabetes part that has an inflammation component as well. It has an autoimmune component. So as we start to stack all of those things up, well, those become, well, that is what you see in dementia, those conditions. Many of the preconditions to that can start with diet, right? What we eat. One, way too much sugar,
Yep.
and then we with our high fructose corn syrup kind of in everything.
Yeah.
We're poisoning ourselves. But then we could just go to environmental toxins, so the toxic load on the brain, and I mean, we haven't just started doing this, but we're not slowing down, and we're expanding as kind of the industrialized world becomes more and more of the world. We have more and more environmental toxins that are entering all aspects of our environment, and so we're all accumulating a toxic load throughout our life. I mean, in certain ways, you just can't avoid it. It's in the air, it's in the water, and so we have that as a factor that's driving it for people. Then we have genetics, and there's concern, and you'll hear a lot of talk in the dementia space around the genetics, and that is a factor, but it's not as big a factor as it's made out to be. Right? A person has a genetic predisposition maybe to develop dementia, but genes aren't destiny, and so we don't want to give that more importance than it deserves. But when you start to add up the factors, then that gene expression is more likely to express if you're eating a poor diet and you're not exercising and you're having the toxic load. Then you're putting a condition, you're creating a condition for that genetic mutation to express versus not.
Yeah.
And so the like I say, it's a lengthy list of things that go on, like poor sleep, uh,
Yeah.
traumatic brain injury. These are all things that can set up the preconditions for dementia down the line.
Yeah. And I said this before, but kind of going along with your genetics and versus lifestyle. So it's something maybe a little bit, heavy, but it's 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 basically like genes load the gun and lifestyle pulls the trigger, right? Have you heard that before? Yeah.
Yes.
So it's a little heavy. I know it's a little, dark, but it's the truth. It's not it's really and then, kind of going along with lifestyle changes is yes, if you have that genetic predisposition, that's even more of an importance to change the lifestyle. Not to say that everybody, it gets a free ride that does not have it,
Correct.
but if you do, then it's even more of an importance to change it.
Yep.
And yeah, so it's unfortunate that we yeah the American or the standard American diet is not helping and it's making it worse. So that's why I do what I do. That's why we do what we do. It's
Yes.
because we need to reverse that and to tell people there's other ways, there's alternative ways, so you can avoid such degenerations in all of it. So yeah.
Yes.
Um, can you explain in detail what bioelectric medicine is?
Mm-hmm. Favorite question.
Yes. Yes. I'm going like, woo, yes, can't wait.
So what I like to do is play a little video. So
Sure.
this would be great for the folks who are watching this on YouTube or other video platforms. And then for the folks who are just listening to the audio, I'll describe what's being shown, and then we may have a little discussion while that's up on the screen.
Yeah.
But this is one of those things what we're going to look at is from research from about 10 or 11 years ago. So it's been around for a while. And when I first saw it, which was probably in that kind of 10ish years ago, I, it just utterly captivated me. It was there. It is like there is the proof that those of us who have been kind of on the alternative medicine side, kind of the understanding that there's an energetic aspect to life, whatever that means, but but there is something besides just chemistry and parts that need to get pushed around and aligned, and then everything would be fine. Like this kind of reductionist, materialist, mechanistic view. There is something else. And when I saw this, that was that moment for me. And so whenever I have a chance to do a presentation, I like to show this video, hoping that somebody will have a similar aha moment. But mostly what I get is head tilts and bemused looks. So we'll see how it goes today. Let me navigate the technology here. Okay. So in a moment, I'm going to press the button. You're going to see actually two frog embryos kind of going through, well, there's very early stages of embryogenesis. And so you're going to look at the one that's the kind of the brighter one that's a little bit more to the left of the screen is the one to focus on. So here we go. And then what you're going to see is what looks like a face coming in. So it looks like a time lapse photo of the physical anatomy forming. And we'll go back and play that again. But what we're actually seeing here is the electromagnetic field that comes in before the anatomy starts. Right? So this is just an electromagnetic field. It looks like a face, right?
Yeah.
As you're seeing it, and we walk through it, this time I'll kind of point. We'll see the center line of the face is showing there,
Yeah.
then a mouth, and then the gill arches, and then we're going to see an eye as it turns to the side, right?
Yeah.
So very much looks like the formation of a physical face, but it is the electromagnetic template where cells will migrate to, and then they'll get local information about you're going to become an eye cell and you're going to become a gill cell. And then within that, what part of the eye or the gill or the mouth are you going to become is held in part in that electromagnetic field. And so this is, in many ways, this is the foundation in, say, traditional Chinese medicine or Ayurvedic medicine or Tibetan medicine. In most of the traditional systems, have known this for thousands of years. They've presumed that there is this electromagnetic field that is doing something. If in Chinese medicine, they would say qi, or Ayurvedic medicine, prana. And although in Chinese medicine there are many different kinds of qi, so we don't want to oversimplify it, this would just qualify potentially as one of them. But what the traditions have held is that there is this energetic quality, but that energetic quality isn't just a force, right? And this is the kind of the important distinction: is it's not just a force doing work, like a force like pushing something or separating something like that. It's information. It's an intelligence that is directing a process, and that if you can interact with that intelligence, you can change the process that's happening there. And that's very much the fundamental to Chinese medicine. Is if you interact with the qi, you can change what's happening in an organ system, or in an entire body, or in a mind, by interacting with the intelligence at the level of qi you're working at. So what we're seeing now is in the world of bioelectric medicine. So take that video and then fast forward again 10 years. One of my favorite researchers is Michael Levin at Tufts University. This isn't his research, but it's associated with folks he works with in their lab. They're learning how to interact with this, from a Western science standpoint. How can they interact with these fields of intelligence? And so what he's been able to do is so in salamanders, we all know that salamanders can regenerate a limb,
Yeah.
but frogs don't regenerate a limb. He's been able to get frogs to regenerate a limb. So using bioelectric medicine, in a sense, to kind of turn on the the biological algorithm in that system that says grow a leg here, he can get a leg to grow. And one, it's been, like amputate a leg anywhere along and then say grow the part of the leg that is needed to have a normal frog leg. They Again, they can interact with the bioelectric medicine field to turn on the algorithm to just grow what's needed and no more and no less. You get a perfect frog leg. And they've done that with other things. They've grown an eye on a tadpole tail. They've grown two-headed animals. There's a number of things that they can do by manipulating the bioelectric field in a known way. They know what they're doing beforehand, and the proof is that they say, hey, if we interact with the bioelectric field in this way, this is the result we think we'll get, and then they get that result. Right? So that's kind of the proof of the hypothesis, the theory, and now it is a science fact. Similarly, in cancer, he's shown that essentially what cancer is when a version of that bioelectric field, so that electromagnetic field, although slightly different in the research that he's doing around cancer, when you interrupt that local network of intelligence, what happens is healthy tissue, it reverts to a single cell and starts doing what single cell organisms do, which is follow their own plan, which is eat more and reproduce. Well, that's a tumor, right? It,
Yeah.
it draws vasculature to itself. It consumes more nutrients than those cells would have otherwise, and they reproduce faster and they grow kind of out of control and out of bounds, because to them, everything around that is not like them is outside environment. It's other. Right? And that's the difference. And so he's been able to show that you can take healthy tissue, break the local communication network. What will form will be a tumor. You can let that tumor grow. If you reinstantiate the local information network, that tumor will go back to being whatever tissue it was. And he's been able to do that in a single animal, turn a tumor on, turn it off, turn it on, turn it off, turn it on, showing proof of concept that in the types of tumors that he has done this with, because we don't want to go outside of what he has actually shown in the lab, that this is an updated understanding of what cancer is. And there's other labs that are looking at this now, but even before Michael Levin was doing his work, we're starting to see that this was the underpinning of cancer, was this breakdown in cell-to-cell signaling in this communication network. So in other words, it's a loss of the local intelligence, and that's what results in a tumor from that perspective. And so so this is bioelectric medicine. I mean, it's really turning biology on its head, because there is this idea, one, that it's not all chemical, that we're chemical electric beings. We're more than that. But if we're being reductionist for the moment, we could say we're not just chemical, we're chemical electric. So we have pharmaceuticals to work with the chemical side. We can use electroceuticals to work with the electric side. And that's what's happening in bioelectric medicine, is this growing of a scientific-based understanding of how to use electricity to affect what's happening on a cell level, on a tissue level, on an organ level, on an organism level, to create more of what you want and less of what you don't want.
Fascinating. Very, very, very fascinating. It's just, wow.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I have no words on that one.
Yeah. So I would encourage anybody who's listening, like, go to YouTube and look up Michael Levin
Yeah.
bioelectricity. So just search Michael Levin bioelectricity. He has many, 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 many talks now. Which is great, because he really should be out talking about what they're showing. Again, because the implications aren't just for biology and healthcare, although there are many, but his understanding that he's bringing to the West. And again, I don't think so. My opinion is that he isn't discovering something, that he is using the tenets of science to to kind of query nature and find durable patterns and then leverage those patterns to get outcomes that we want. So I really don't think like he's not necessarily discovering, and I think he would say the same thing, is that he's discovering something. Because again, if you look at what his research is producing in terms of its impact on, or the if what he's saying is true, how does it scale? So going from biology to psychology it has very much something to say about psychology, and then sociology, and then philosophy, and you'll find many emerging conversations within, kind of high quality academic conversations around the implications of what he's saying. And his central theory is what he calls TAME, technological approach to mind everywhere. And it's this idea that mind goes all the way down. Mind isn't just what we human beings have, and maybe say, okay, a couple other mammals have it. Like I'm pretty sure my dog has a mind, but I don't know that my cat does.
Right.
I say that as a longtime cat person.
Good, because I'm a cat owner too. So,
Yeah.
and believe me, that cat is very, very smart.
Yes. Yes. And the nice thing about cats is like they have their own mind
Yeah.
and they don't really care what's in your mind.
Mhm.
Um,
Good.
but this idea that mind goes all the way down, and there's research to show that not so much, like Michael Levins tends to stop at the level of biology, but other researchers are taking this down to the molecular level, to the chemical level, to the physics level, and then depending on who you follow,
Got it.
somebody like Donald Hoffman, he would presume a level below quantum physics, and there's this idea that it exists there too, that intelligence exists on every level of existence, and rather than interacting with the parts, you interact with the intelligence. And if we look within holistic health, we have systems just like that. Right?
Yeah.
If you take one of the modalities that I do is cranial sacral therapy. Within cranial sacral therapy, we have biomechanical, where you learn the anatomy and the physiology and the pathophysiology, and you presume parts, and the parts are out of alignment, and you put the parts in alignment, and then they function. It's kind of an engineering approach.
Right.
And then we have biodynamic cranial sacral, which presumes all the same anatomy and physiology and pathophysiology, only in biodynamic cranial sacral, we wouldn't say that we're working with the parts. We're working with the intelligence kind of around the parts. And so I'm never trying to get a sphenoid bone to go into a certain position because the book says this is where it should be.
Right.
It's a conversation, it's a dialogue between an intelligence in me and an intelligence in the sphenoid bone around what is needed to optimize the local milieu, and then that's the outcome we're looking for. What optimizes the system as opposed to what puts the system in a set of predetermined relationships.
Got it.
Yeah. So that idea scales all the way up of, rather than dealing with parts, you're dealing with the intelligence.
Right.
And this is I would say this is the big revelation in Michael Levin's work and others who are doing this, is to bring into Western science the idea of this. It didn't really, not to say it didn't exist, but not in the way it is now. But then to marry that idea with practical application in the lab, where you have proof of concept, and then look at that as bringing that then to a level of application. And so, for example, one of Michael Levin's spinoff companies, they're doing limb regeneration in mammals. And so they've gotten to a point in a mouse model where they can regrow about half a limb. So that's pretty darn good, considering theoretically that's not supposed to happen at all.
Right.
Yeah. And so the implications of, for a person to be able to regrow an appendage or an organ, it's just utterly remarkable. Yeah.
Yeah, no, fascinating. Definitely fascinating. So then the question is how does CerebralFit utilize bioelectric medicine? So how do you utilize that in your product?
Yeah. So I'll just say quickly, what CerebralFit is I like to say we're not a technology company, we're a solutions company. Right? And so we have devices. Some of them are our own devices that we have designed and manufactured, but others are not our devices. They're third-party devices. Because my thing is really, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. If there's a best in class, just use the best in class. For me, it isn't about, well, it's my device, it's our device, CerebralFit's device. Don't care. Somebody else has invented a device that is best in class. Great. I'm going to use theirs. Because the goal is better health outcomes for patients. And the patient does not care who owns the device and who's profiting from it. They want relief from their suffering, and then on the other side of it, they want flourishing. They want to live the highest quality life that they're able to live given their circumstances and limitations. And so we have an infrared helmet, we have an audiovisual entrainment device, we have a nasal laser, we have a microcurrent, a frequency-specific microcurrent device, we have a red and infrared panel system, and we have a LED light oral device. So these are our devices. Again, we mostly treat brains. That's our kind of public-facing side, hence the name CerebralFit. But we also do bodies, right? So the bulk of my client base are dementia. Just happens to be that way. It's a very motivated population. And then I would say probably Parkinson's, dystonia, and then traumatic brain injury, anxiety, depression, and peak performance. But certainly for us, dementia is the biggest patient population that we treat, and we're seeing wonderful results. We can tell some stories in a moment. But we use the infrared helmet, the audiovisual entrainment, the nasal laser to influence the system, to help move the system on multiple levels in the direction that we want it to go in, and kind of away from the direction we don't want it to go in, right? So we don't want more degeneration. We actually want to revitalize the tissues and structures and processes. And where possible, we want to actually regenerate them. And so the how of this is where the complication, the conversation gets complicated. Eyes can glaze over, as we get into kind of the science of it. But I'll just say a few things. So something like near infrared light. Near infrared light will penetrate 3-4 inches into the brain. So we're able to get photons into the brain. And a lot of our physiology can handle light as a source of energy and information. Right? So again, we're working on both sides of this. So mitochondria are one of the organelles that are predominantly affected by near infrared light. So this is so it's increasing mitochondrial activity, which is the production of more ATP, which is energy. So it literally gives the brain more energy. So that's good. It's kind of like getting more money, right? Most of us, our life would improve if somebody came along and just went, oh, here's some extra money. And they're just going to give you a little extra money. Like every day, you're just going to get a little extra money, right? And we would take that, and most of us would take that and make our lives better with it. The brain does the same thing. It takes that extra energy and it does the repair and regeneration. And if we're lucky, kind of a regrowth that is needed because of the presence of the deteriorator things that we talked about earlier, whether it's inflammation from diet or toxins from the environment or wherever it's come from. So, but mitochondria are also really important in cell signaling. And so this is just relatively new research. And it isn't so much the newness of it, but just how much research is coming out now around mitochondria's role, not so much in ATP production, but in cell-to-cell signaling. And so when we get back to that level of one of the most important things is cell-to-cell signaling, it is tissue network, the health of the network, maintaining the local information pattern. Mitochondria participate in that a great deal. So as we age, we lose mitochondria. When we get into the degenerative diseases, one of the more susceptible parts of the cell is the mitochondria. And so we see a loss in mitochondria themselves and in mitochondrial function when we look at the degenerating brain. So if we can revitalize, all we could do was revitalize the mitochondria, it would be a big help to the brain as a whole. But it doesn't just stop there. Right? So there's an ongoing list of benefits. So we reduce inflammation, we increase nitric oxide, which has to do with blood perfusion. So more nutrients in, more toxins out. But it also is about maintaining the health of arteries. So this is something we know as we age, the health of our arteries in the brain deteriorate. And that increase of nitric oxide actually helps keep those vessels more pliable, more functional. So there's a lot of benefits to be said there. And the list goes on. I mean, RNA transcriptase, so when cells make copies of themselves, near-infrared light has an effect of optimizing the production of the copy. So this gets back to if you have a genetic predisposition and you want to minimize the risk of that genetic mutation expressing, near-infrared light has a role to play in decreasing the chances that genetic mutation expresses.
Really?
Yeah. So I'll pause there for a moment because
no, it's yeah. I mean, it just does a lot, and obviously, as you mentioned, all these different components that really takes over everything. It's just kind of regenerating, everything. That's awesome. Where can people get this or reach out to you or all of that good stuff?
Sure. So the best place is our website. So www.cerebralfit.com. So cerebral, FIT.com, cerebralfit.com. And there they'll find a direct phone number for me. They'll find a direct email for me. They could go ahead and schedule. We do a free 15-minute consult, just chat with people and find out if what's going on for them is a good match for what we do. And if it is, typically we would then set up a longer consult where we do a full health history intake, put together a treatment plan, and then implement that treatment plan if the person feels like they want to move forward with it. But they can book that appointment right on the CerebralFit.com website. They can order our products. So if somebody says like, oh, I just want to get started, this infrared helmet sounds wonderful, just go to the site and you can buy one, and you'll end up talking to me anyway, so you can't avoid me. Our devices are they're not difficult to run, but they're technical and they can do a lot. And so what I like to do is I'll get on a Zoom consult with somebody. We'll talk through what their needs are. Maybe they need one device. Maybe they need a suite of devices. Put together that package, ship it to them. Then when they get it, we'll hop on another Zoom call. We'll go through each device, how to set it up, how to program it, what are their protocols, what's their treatment plan. Then I let them run with that for a while to kind of get used to just the technology, just how to do it. My general goal is for people, if we're talking neurodegenerative condition, if we're talking dementia, it's going to be 2 30-minute treatments a day. That's my ask. For people who are not in that severe of a case, if we're talking anxiety or depression or traumatic brain injury that is more on the line of like a concussion, we're looking at then probably 1 30-minute treatment a day as the treatment plan. Post-stroke typically will be in that same kind of area. So I let people get used to the technology, and then maybe in 3 weeks or 4 weeks, when they know how to run everything, they don't have to think about it. They've got that handled. Then we would meet again and start giving them more advanced treatment plans. And because again, the equipment can do a lot. And what I want to do is level one, just get people using it. It's treating, it's working, it's being effective, but it's kind of a generic plan. Then we start to get more and more specific, and then I track people over the months or years, and as their brain is changing and healing is happening and certain functioning is coming back, but other ones aren't, and we need to change the plan to get more of those functions to come forward than what the gains we were making. Then again, we just change their treatment plan to continue bringing them the results that they want till we get to a maintenance level.
So do they use this indefinitely for the rest of their lives, or is there like a time limit, or
Sure.
obviously case by case, I'm assuming?
It is. Yep. That's a good question. So for acute conditions, we presume more of an acute treatment plan, short term. Somebody has a concussion,
Yeah.
and maybe they're having some headaches, some autonomic nervous system dysregulation, so their digestion is off, and maybe they're having just a little brain fog, right? Yeah. So there we might treat for a couple weeks, and then they're back and they're like, no, I'm good. I'm the me I was before the concussion. Great. You can be done.
Yeah.
But if you're looking at something like dementia, then we presume that kind of degenerative force, right? The pathology that has had a 20-year ramp up is probably not going to go away. It
Yeah.
could. It's probably not. So the way I kind of think of it is we're pushing back against that force.
Yeah.
And with one hand, we're kind of holding back the degeneration, and with the other, we're rehabilitating the tissues that have been damaged. But you need that input on a regular basis. And maybe a person gets where they're not doing twice a day, they're doing once a day or once every other day. But generally what I find is for my dementia folks, again, it could be Parkinson's, who stick with the twice a day, they get back the most function and maintain that high level of functioning over a long run versus the person who maybe got back a great deal of their function, but then backs off their treatment, their gains back off.
Yeah.
And the analogy I use with my clients is just think diet and exercise.
Mhm.
If you want to get in shape, whatever shape means for you, if you want to get in shape, you go to the gym, you're working out, you're there 3-4 days a week, all your exercises, and 8 months later, you're like, this is great. I feel great. This is wonderful. And so then you start going to the gym less and less, and then you're not going to the gym anymore, but you're paying the membership because you're going to go, but you don't, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I know a lot of people like that.
exactly. But when you fast forward a year, like you haven't been to the gym for a year, you were no longer in the shape you were when you're doing it, right? Like we all
Right.
expect that. This is just normal, right?
Right.
And the same thing for nutrition. Um, you get on a nutrition plan, you're on keto, you're eating keto, a year goes by, God, I feel fantastic. And then you start eating potato chips and donuts again, and all of a sudden you don't feel fantastic.
Right.
So this idea of the way we're working with bioelectric medicine is like nutrition and exercise. That's what we're doing. We're nourishing. In the case of if we're treating the brain, we're nourishing the brain. If it's the body, we're nourishing the body and giving it what it needs to be healthy, to grow and function in an optimal environment. When you take that away, well, then absent that nourishment, then you get the other side of it. So I
Yeah.
like to call the devices kind of the toothbrush for the brain. Brush your
Yeah.
teeth twice a day, every day for as long as you want to have teeth. When you're done with them, stop brushing them. Your brain, you should brush your brain every day till you're done with your brain, then stop brushing it. Yeah.
That's nice. I like that analogy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Is there any question that I didn't ask that you would like to discuss or talk about? I mean, literally we had so much information, visual, you know, verbal, all of that. And I can't thank you enough for bringing your expertise, your knowledge, everything like that, because I think it's fascinating, especially in these times, especially in the personal, you know, feel of it. So I just wonder if there's anything that you left on the table that you're just wanting to get out there, or
Sure, sure. I appreciate that. I appreciate you asking the question. Um, yeah, I mean, we could do this for hours, but I will say we talked a lot about the brain, which is great. Um, but because what bioelectric medicine does is is again more like nutrition, exercise. It gives the system um, nutrients, but also again we're working with that information side of it. We're reminding. Like one of my teachers used to say, like this, the system has lost the plot, right? And if we take something like fibromyalgia or chronic fatigue syndrome or irritable bowel syndrome, these all come under the umbrella of central sensitization. And basically, central sensitization is the body has lost the plot. Mostly the central nervous system and the autonomic nervous system, but it can extend definitely out into the tissues as well. You can see changes in fibromyalgia where touch receptors have converted to a nociceptor, so pain receptors. We actually have change out at the tissue level. That's not always the case, but we would say the system has lost the plot. It's an information processing problem. And the only way I've had success with my fibromyalgia clients or my chronic fatigue clients or my IBS clients, and when I say success, I don't mean they're well managed. I mean, they no longer see themselves as having the condition. They see it as past them, like, oh, I used to be like that, but now I'm not like that. And I don't live my life as a person who is trying not to have their symptoms. They they just live their life. They eat what they want, they do what they want, they can be in stressful situations, and they're not, in imminent danger of a flare up, right? That's what I mean by success. I spent 30 years helping people, maybe not 30, 25 years of helping people manage until I really started to see this side of bioelectric medicine. So it is to say that this isn't just about treating brains.
yeah,
We can do bodies. It is mostly chronic conditions where this does the best work. But I have many clients who go through surgery and will use frequency specific microcurrent post surgery, knee replacements, optimize the recovery from a knee replacement, or we're really concerned about fascial adhesions forming and complications from that. So unlimited array of where we could deploy this, even though today we mostly talked about, dementia and brain.
great, yeah, all over. We're a system, right? So something
Exactly.
that takes care of not only the brain but the body. Yeah, it's just a fabulous, just fabulous. Like just in general, it's so fascinating. So thank you so much for coming on here and just giving us all of this knowledge and information. And yeah, it's just a pleasure to have you on here, Guy. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It was a delight to chat with you.
Yeah, great. And to my audience, you are worth it. Have a good one.